Hello and welcome everyone to this week's Numerology Quick Takes. I hope you're all doing well. This is the Intentionally Intuitive Podcast and I'm Kimberly Boscheman. We're going to take a look at the energies that are in store for us this week. We're going to be working with a vibration of the 22, so the 202. Before we break it down, I just want to mention that if you want to work with me and have a personal numerology reading where we take a look at your own personal numerology and to see how that can affect you and your current journey, even what's coming up in the future, then book some time with me. I'd love to work with you. My information's in the description box below. Okay, so looking at the universal cycle of this week, again, we're looking at the 22, so 202. This is an energy that can bring the focus towards relationships and how we relate to another person. It can bring into focus our relationship with ourselves as well, but there's a strong emphasis on how we connect with another person or other people. And it doesn't have to be about romantic relationships, it's the art of relating to another. And so you could find this week that a lot of relationships from the past that need some work or need some healing, or maybe there was some miscommunications, could come to your attention this week. You could notice that you're getting communication or contact from people who, again, maybe were in your life at one time and things went south, but there's an opportunity to make amends or to heal that connection in some way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be sort of rekindling that connection and back in each other's lives the same way that you were previously, although for some of you that could be the case. But there's the possibility now for the two of you to come together and heal what needs healing so that you can release what needs releasing, so that all involved can move into a higher octave, so that all involved can release the tension, the sort of the heavy energy that you might have been carrying towards each other, or, you know, guilt that you might have been carrying about that connection. This is such a beautiful week to find ways to set that down, right? In a healthy way where, you know, people are taking responsibility and accountability and you're working through that and you're, you know, finding greater understanding for the other person and what they're moving through and what they were moving through and their perspective, etc. So, and then also having ample time to do that, you know, sharing that side of you with that person, the other person as well. So there's a great, again, emphasis on sort of becoming the observer this week and really focusing on where there is the disconnect. And it doesn't just have to be with relationships from your past. It could be difficult relationships, obviously, that you're working through right now. Or you might meet someone and you're not really sure how to read the situation, or you're not really sure how to handle it. This week can bring in a lot of clarity on how to move through that connection to again find that common ground, to find balance within that connection, to find that reciprocity, that equal exchange of energy, etc., etc. But this is such a great week to really stand back and again become the observer and see where there might be some disconnect, where things might be out of balance, where things just feel off kilter a little bit. And recognize the role that you play within that dynamic to greater understand how you can show up in a way that is healthy and facilitates that greater connectivity within that dynamic. So there can be a lot of like self-reflection this week, especially when it relates to your relationships. And there could be some hard truths that come in as well. If you're looking at all of your connections and you're constantly blaming the other person for why that connection did not work out and not taking enough time to look at the role that you might have played within the disintegration of that connection, this week will give you plenty of opportunities to do that. So again, if there's responsibility or accountability that you need to take, this is a great week to recognize that and to do so. Now, I recognize that there's a lot of times within connections that, it's just not feasible or it just isn't healthy to connect within the physical, right? That's very possible. And if that's the case, this week still will present opportunities for you to find ways, again, to release that guilt, set down the burdens that you've been carrying around that connection in a healthy way, right? And that may require you to seek professional help in order to do that through a therapist, a therapist is obviously the best idea because they're unbiased and they can offer you tools to be able to move through that. But it's just a great week to find ways to set down the burdens that you carry that aren't yours, especially as they relate to relationships and connections. But again, on the other side of the coin, it's such a great week also to connect in the physical with people and to have those deeper conversations, to be honest, to be vulnerable, and to be open to compromise, to be open to seeing other perspectives, and then finding that common ground, working together to find that common ground. The 2 energy in tarot is often represented by the 2 of Cups. And if you see the 2 of Cups, obviously it's 2 people, traditionally how it's depicted, it's 2 people coming together. And there's the snake and the medical insignia, right? That signifies healing and seeing eye to eye and sharing your emotions, being emotionally vulnerable, right? The cup is there for that emotive essence. So there's this opportunity this week to be vulnerable, to be honest, to share how you feel with the other person and be open to hearing how they feel as well. Give them space to be vulnerable as well in order to connect. And it might be that through that dialogue and through that deeper connection, you realize that maybe it's not the connection you thought it was. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it is for you. But a lot of truth and clarity can come out of this energy this week if we allow it to. But it definitely takes both people showing up in order to do that. And through that process, again, we can sort of set down any heaviness that we've been carrying around that connection. So beautiful work to be done there if that relates, if that resonates for you. The other thing I would say right out of the gate with this energy is it's a very decisive type of energy. It requires decision. So there might be a lot of opportunities this week to make some very important decisions. And those important decisions could be very pivotal in your life, in the direction of your life. And it doesn't just have to be about relationships, although there could be, that could be a factor. This is really looking at any area of your life where you feel like you're at some kind of a crossroads, or you feel like you're coming up on a crossroad. This week could require you to get serious about making a decision, right? Do you want to turn right here, or do you want to turn left? And you might have to weigh your options and weigh the pros and cons and use your discernment in deciding what direction feels right for you in this moment. Understanding that you will always have the opportunity to pivot. You will always have the opportunity to change directions if you decide down the road that the decision that you're making now wasn't necessarily the best decision for you at that time. But you could find yourself in situations this week, or we could, right? This is the universal energy, where a decision has to be made. You've come to the point where you've been maybe thinking about it for a while. You are, there's nowhere else to go now. You have to make a decision. And that decision could be very significant when it as it pertains to your life. It could be very pivotal in that sense. But what I also love about this energy, right? It brings in this decisiveness that's needed. It pushes us to connect with our inner self, to feel into what feels right for us in this moment and how to best handle that. But it kind of pushes us to make the decision and then take the action from that decision, right? And through that process, we can see our lives change in some way. The experience starts to change in some way. So we're kind of forced to, or really pushed in the direction of weighing our options, creating some kind of a plan, being decisive, and then taking action. And then moving with the energies as they begin to move with us. But what I also love about this is we have the vibration of the 0. And that 0 brings in the clean slate. It doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to, totally be uprooted and everything's going to be brand new. It can definitely mean that there's a new opportunity within your current experience to try something different, do something new. But you have like the clean slate, right? You're sitting in the vibration of the 0, which is the clean space. There's nothing there. You basically are given a clean canvas in this experience that you're in. Or it could be an entirely new experience. It just depends on your situation. But you're sitting here with this clean canvas within this situation, and you have all the tools and all the colors that you could possibly think of to create whatever it is that you want to create with this new. It's almost like you're given like new clay, fresh clay, and you get to like mold it into whatever you want to mold it into. The options are endless. So what will you sculpt? What will you create? What will you design with this new opportunity? And there will likely be decisions that have to be made in that process, but you have the free reign to decide what that's going to look like. And a lot of that could relate to your relationships and how you choose to handle those relationships, how you choose to show up to them, how you choose to be vulnerable, how you choose to take responsibility or accountability for what's yours, and release accountability, release responsibility for what isn't yours to carry. But it's kind of like a breath of fresh air in some situation in your life where you remember that you're the artist, you're the storyteller within your experience. So what story do you want to tell? What art do you want to create? What does that look like? What do you want? So this is kind of like magician energy, where you have a decision to make, or maybe many decisions, and those decisions will determine the art that you create, what you put on that fresh canvas with that vibration of the 0. And it will also determine potentially what your connections look like, what your next steps look like, right? Like this is such a beautiful energy. It's such a nuanced energy. I mean, they all are, but this is really such a nuanced energy that not only pushes us to make a decision and take action, but reminds us that we have a clean slate to create what we want to create within that experience, within our own experience. And it also forces us to look at how our actions, how our decisions not only affect ourselves, but affect others as well. And to gain a better understanding about that dynamic and what that looks like. And again, what's our responsibility? What's our accountability? How do we engage? How do we show up? And how does that affect the dynamic? So it's so multi-layered in so many ways. And it also pushes us to be adaptable, right? To not be so rigid or headstrong that we simply demand that things continue as they've always continued without being flexible, without seeing a better way or a different way, right? And what's so beautiful about it is all of these energies are really pushing us into greater balance, right? So much about the 2 energy is balance, and we have double 2s here, the 202, right? So there's, whatever the decisions are, whatever the opportunities are that come in for you at this time, whatever it is that you are going to sculpt or create or paint or whatever, metaphorically speaking, it's meant to give you the opportunity to bring things within your experience into greater harmony, into greater balance, holistically. So body, mind, spirit. Such a beautiful opportunity to take a closer look at where you feel misaligned, where it is that you feel the things just feel too heavy to carry, or you've taken on too much of a burden. You are you need to maybe make some adjustments in your circumstances, right? Maybe your body's telling you it needs more hydration or more sleep or healthier, fuel or whatever. Maybe your body's telling you that you're overthinking or overanalyzing and really creating a lot of heaviness mentally and emotionally with those stories. So there's a lot here. There's really a lot here this week that can come in. But really at the heart of it, just remember a few things. Relationships could definitely be coming in. And it's not just about healing or balance or whatever. This could definitely be making connections this week that feel more balanced, taking relationships to the next level that feel like that equal exchange of energy, that feel healthy. Maybe they feel healthier than any relationship you've ever been in before. And it doesn't just have to be romantic. It can be friendships or colleagues or, like a work environment, whatever. This could definitely be a great week where you connect with someone who feels so aligned with your spirit, with your mission, with the direction you want to move in. And it could be the healthiest connection you've had in a very long time. So that can be incredibly beautiful as well. And I spoke about, I don't know if you saw the video I put out about the full moon that we just had. It was a short that I put out. But it's very much, driving the energy this week also, because we had this full moon on the 12th today, this earlier today, right? And that brought in so much energy around karma. So there's so much this week also that is heavily influenced by karma. And karma is just, our actions, the consequences of our actions. We're being asked to move through that, right? It's in motion now. And so some of us could be seeing karmic events close out. Some could be seeing karmic events begin. And as I spoke about in that video, karma isn't always challenging and frustrating. It can also be incredibly beautiful. And so with this vibration of the 22, it's such a beautiful opportunity this week to paint a new storyline, paint a new picture with people who feel really good for you, who feel supportive, who feel aligned. But you get to decide how those people, what role those people play within your lives. And that can be really powerful, really, really powerful. This 22 also brings in, or can bring in, sudden events, again, that requires some kind of decision that can be absolutely some kind of significant turning point in your life. A change of location, a new job, a fresh new relationship, a change in your relationship in some way. All of this can require your focus, your energy onto this to decide. You get to decide what that looks like for you. Any of it. Every single thing that comes into your life, you make a decision about how you want to handle it, how you want to move through it, how you want to, whatever. We decide that through our decisions and through our choices. We can't decide what life throws at us, but we can absolutely decide how we move through it and what we decide to do with it and how we want to manage that. And this week reminds us of that in a lot of ways. Could definitely bring in some changes this week that we need to be adaptable with. But those changes, again, stem from the decisions that we make and the actions that we take. So remember, you are at the helm of your own ship this week. You don't have control over how the other person behaves or acts or reacts. You don't have control over how that connection plays out, because there's more than just you involved in that connection or those connections. But you have every bit of control over how you show up and how you present yourself and how you engage. And again, the art that you create for this next chapter, whatever that may be. You can learn a lot about yourself this week, for sure, a lot about yourself. And you might discover that you're definitely in a different place than you have been. And so your decisions might look very different than they've looked before. And that can be a little bit scary. That can be a little bit intimidating. But, the best way to overcome that is to make the decision and go and just see how it plays out and how it unfolds. And then move with it, move with the flow from there and however it presents. The other thing I would say, this energy can definitely, it's kind of like that feeling of really, you're at a crossroads and you have to make some kind of a decision about something or many things. And, we can really talk ourselves down when we're in those positions, and it can become incredibly overwhelming. And that can keep us from actually making the decision. But keeping us from making that decision, if we choose not to make the decision because we're afraid or we don't, we're just not ready or whatever, it can actually create a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration, a lot of restlessness, a lot of stress, a lot of depression. So, if you start to feel that, if you start to feel really overwhelmed and just you just don't know what to do type of thing, take a beat, pause, journal, go into nature, do something that feels good for you, that feels healing, that lets you kind of decompress, and then come back to it and weigh your options. Create a plan, because when we have a plan, then it calms the ego, right? It makes the ego feel safe. And so we don't start to feel that overwhelm or that anxiety. And we can remember that no matter what decision we make, no matter what consequences of those decisions are created, right, that we have to move through, we can handle it just like we've handled it our entire lives. Everything in life is a consequence of our decisions and our actions, every single thing. And so, we've been able to move through that and learn the lessons of those experiences. So why would we think that we can't moving forward? So take the pressure off a little bit, but don't let it cripple you to the point where you're unable to make that decision, right? This is such a big week for that, because that decision and then taking an action from that decision is what is creating or helping you to create this new storyline, this next adventure, this next piece of the puzzle that, remember, you are the artist of, you are the magician of. So you get to decide what that looks like. But if you start to feel overwhelmed or start to go down the rabbit hole or start to feel like you have to have all the answers before you can make the decision, no, you don't. And you probably won't have all the answers. You certainly won't. And that's just part of it, right? That's just part of life. So the key is to talk yourself off that cliff so that you don't get to the point of overwhelm and get to the point of that stress that keeps you from making the decision, whatever that decision may be. You've got this, whatever this may be. Trust yourself. Again, create the plan. What's the worst case scenario? And then what will you do if the worst case scenario happens from your decision? What's the best case scenario? What does that look like? And what actions will you take from that space? So very interesting week here. Very, very interesting week. But don't resist the need for change. There's a lot of need for change here, even though there's not a lot of there's no 5 energy here. But there's this 2 energy pushes us into greater balance. But in order to step into that greater balance, a lot of times there needs to be some kind of change. So again, do not resist the need for change. Again, weigh your options, create a plan, be decisive, take action, and have fun with it. See what unfolds, not forgetting that you are the magician in the storyline. So what magic will you create this week? All right, y'all, I hope it's a great one. Take care. Bye for now.